Hi, welcome back to your channel. Sorry I'm just on the roundabout. So here we are on the brand new 2024 Honda NX 500 as a replacement to my Honda 750 Transalp. So I've gone against the trend a bit, and instead of upgrading, I've downgraded with a full license. So with a full license, I've decided to go from a 92 horsepower Honda Transalp 25 model. I did have a 23 model as well. Did 40,000 Ks on both bikes in total. And it's only 6 months after getting the second Transalp, I've downgraded to this little bike. I say little bike, it's still 196 kilos and I had 134 mils, but tell you, first one I can tell anyone thinking about this bike, because yeah, they're getting older, or they've had a loss of body strength due to surgery or illness, or they're just, they're a light person. This is a much more, and I've only driven, there's 43 Ks since the shop, it had 0 Ks on it. This is a much, just from the outset, this is a much more manageable bike. I am so happy, because I hadn't ridden the bike. I just sat in the showroom, and straight away I felt at ease with the balance of the bike, for my short legs, 28-inch legs. And I'm sure I'm not the only person that's got short legs, and I'm not the only person that's only about 173 centimeters. So coming from that angle, and that's why I sold a big not the only reason. The main reason was I needed a little bit of money. Like everybody, things change, some cash fluidity, and I was getting tired of it. Getting a little bit tired. What was I getting tired of a Transalp? But I was getting tired of, which I'll find with this bike as well, is the service costs, because I like riding often. I mean, when you got a bike as good as the Transalp, you can cover like 400 Ks, 500 Ks in a day on back roads. We're not talking about motorways, we're talking about back roads, sealed back roads and the odd dirt road. Then you're on a winner as far as comfort's concerned. No, I've done 40 Ks on this bike. I've never ridden this bike before, the NX 500, which is a replacement. Now, I should start to say this is the 24 model. It was the end of line, end of stock clearance, and I got one of the last bikes, because I initially put the money down on a 300 rally, which I'll discuss in another video. So when I was talking on my last videos on my 750 Transalp, so if you have a look at the previous videos, for the last 3 or 4 videos, I was sort of discussing replacing what would be a good replacement for the Transalp. Not really thinking I was going to sell a Transalp. Just, fermented in the brain, just different reasons, which I'll sort of discuss. And so I've done the deed, and I've only done 45 Ks, and I hand on heart, I feel good vibes about the switch. I was a bit apprehensive because I knew that, I can feel, first thing, shock horror, 92 horsepower on the Transalp, 47 horsepower, but on the NX 500. 73 newton meters of torque on the Transalp, 34 newton meters of torque on the NX 500. So they are huge differences. This weighs 196 kilos, full tank of fuel. The Transalp weighed 208 kilos, full tank of fuel. That's before you put any accessories on. So if you even put a radiator guard on a tail rack, so you can put it, you're going to add weight, Now, and that's why I'm sort of looking forward to this bike, is to say, okay, probably getting ahead of myself, but the first thing I can say, as soon as I was sitting at the dealer on the bike, I may have had on the video, edited into the video, but just in case I don't, the bike feels so much more balanced than a Transalp for a shorter ride. And if you're 6 foot, you're going to say, "What's he talking about? What's that guy talking about?" You know, that sort of thing. Transalp was a really balanced bike. I could lean it over 45 degrees and it wouldn't tip over. Yeah, well, that's got a lot to do with your leg length, eh? So if you're a 6 foot guy with 34-inch legs, no doubt, and the right boots on, you can tip that bike over a fair bit. The NX 500 in the showroom, with my short legs and my short height, I could lean this bike over with gym shoes, you know, with flat shoes on, about that much. No, I wouldn't try that on a Transalp though. So that 196, that weight isn't much difference. It's only 12 kilos difference, but it's a lot lower down, and it feels more balanced. It feels the bike feels, for a shorter rider, a smaller rider, this feels a lot more balanced. So straight away I can feel, so you can see the angle of my legs, and I've got short legs. These pegs are higher up and they're set further back. They're very short, they're very small pegs. I've bought some inserts, so probably first thing you'd want to do is widen the pegs. If you're wearing boots, I'm wearing Tech 7s, and these Tech 7s are fine for this bike. I was pricing buying Alpine Star Corzols or Alpine Toucans, because they give you an extra 20 mils. So if you are shorter than me, if you got 26-inch legs, 27, if you buy a pair of Toucans, Alpine Star Toucans GDX, they increase your seat height by your sole of your foot by 25 mils, and they got a wide spread. So if your boot's wider at the sole, not at the toe box, at the sole, and the taller, the thicker, you're going to have a lot more confidence when you put your foot down if you're a shorter rider. So I'm going to try and concentrate on that in future videos, to just relate my experiences on a lighter bike from someone who's come from a very, pretty powerful adventure bike anyway, 92. I know it wasn't the quickest, but it was still pretty quick, eh? I mean, it was a quick bike with Transalp. So I've noticed the power difference. But have I went, "Oh, this is not fun"? Oh, no. This feels like my Transalp, but scaled down version of my Transalp, and so much 19-inch front wheel against 21-inch front wheel, and it feels so balanced. So, and I've got better tyres, eh? These are stock Dunlop mixed tours, which I had on my Transalp bike. I rode with 21-inch front wheel on my Transalp with mixed tours, but they're so much better. I can feel straight away. I mean, I'm still running my tyres in, because it's only 50 k's on the bike, but I can feel the difference at the front end between the 19-inch front wheel and the 21. It just feels great, eh? I know I'm probably waffling on because I'm obviously excited. I've just bought a new bike. Even though some people would say, "Oh, you sold a 750 Transalp for a 47 horsepower NX 500, a budget bike," in some people's terms. But hey, I got a good deal, 9,800 on the run out special. For 11.5 if you want to buy them now. I think most, you might be lucky and get in with a 20 and get 10.5 or something. But if you buy the 26 model with the E-clutch on, which sits out on the side, and that adds about 4 more kilos, but low down weight, you'll be looking at 11.5. I wasn't really personally not interested at the moment in an E-clutch. I had the quick shifter on my 25 model Transalp, my second Transalp, and I hardly used it, eh? No, second fin, so the first one is a balance of a bike is great. The reach to the ground, I've stopped at a few traffic lights back there from the dealership through Brisbane, say Brisbane, Maruka, and just the more confidence to get your foot down. And I haven't bought bigger boots, taller boots. I haven't lowered this. My Transalp had a low seat on, and it was actually a little bit lower than this, but this feels lower balance. That's the important thing. When you put your foot down, how balanced is the bike. It's got a narrow front seat at the front, so you can actually get your leg down on a bit of a bend, eh? Well, I can with short legs, 28 inch. So if you are watching this and going, what's he on about 28 inch, why doesn't he just go on his height? Not everybody is aware, and I know lots of people are aware, but not everybody, including other YouTube channels, including some big European channels, just don't quote their inseam. It's like they're not aware. And the reason is all tall people, eh? So their mindset, but not my inseam. Why would I measure my inseam when I can fit on every bike out there, eh? But it is important for tall people, because they might get on a bike like this, and the rider triangle with a knee is, the bent knees are too bent, and they end up having knee pain, and they'll have to buy a taller seat, get one custom made to raise them up a bit, eh? And even that might not be tall enough, and of course the bars may be too low for them, taller torso as well. So it is your height and your leg inseam. But a really important thing is the leg inseam, eh? Now, I was really third fin, so there we go. The balance of a bike, comparing to a Transalp or a shorter rider, or say a person of average, I can feel this is a shorter rider's bike, eh? It really is. And what I mean by that, it is almost a perfect fit for a 5 foot. I'm 5'7", 5'7.5", 5'8" on a good day. You know what I mean? I've shrunk as I got older, like lots of people do. I'm over 50 years old. I'm closer to 60, even 50, and you don't like to give your age away too much, and so you do shrink. You lose about an inch to 2 inches, eh? And I know I've lost at least an inch. Not between the legs, but the legs themselves, the leg length. I don't know, how much did I have to lose in the first place? So that's the question. Well, I'll keep that private. But getting back to the bike review, I'm trying to keep on topic. This, for a shorter rider, 28 inch inseam, so say from 26 to 30 inches, you'd be on the borderline with 30 inch leg, but you could fix that with a taller seat, eh? This is the standard seat. If you're 26 inches, you can get the lower seat, which will bring it down just under an inch. But at 26 inches, you're on the borderline inseam. You would have to lower the suspension if you're 25 inch legs, 26 inch legs. Now, a lot of women who are short may have longer legs. They have 29, 30 inch legs, even if they're shorter than I am, of the same height. So that's why it's very important when somebody says, I'm 5'8", and look, I can flat foot, to make sure you can flat foot it. They might have long legs, eh? They might say, I'm only 5'3", and I can flat foot it, but they've got 30 inch legs, eh? Or 31 inch legs. Some people got long legs and are short, especially some women. But also men have got longer legs, eh? So everybody's different. Everybody's got different torso, arm lengths. I've got sort of shortish, tubby, not quite, but short legs. They don't particularly look short, my legs, but they are, but 28 inch. So, probably, like a bit of a tubby character. What's that, tubby tub character? I have no idea. But, so straight off, hey, could have waved, eh? Could have waved on me on my brand new red Honda. That's the fourth fin. I was going to get the white one because I like white bikes, and but I thought I've never owned a red bike, and I was thinking of the cockpit. When you look forward, what do you see? You see the petrol tank and the shrouds, eh? And I thought, well, if I'm going to downgrade from a grey Transalp, the 25 model light grey one, I want to feel as though I'm on a completely different bike as far as possible, because it's very similar to the Transalp. Everything about it looks the same, except the Transalp didn't have that. But it is very similar. Just check my backpacks on. thing is, on this, very hard to see the back of your bike. I like wider mirrors. I haven't, I'll go into that later. I was just going to say I haven't stood up on this bike. I love standing up, and I've been told it's a difficult bike to stand up on. So I will see if that's only applies to taller people than me, or if it's true, but you can get bar rises and you can reposition the pegs. The pegs are high and set back. I'll go into all that later because I was just trying to cram everything into the first ride. I'm just getting first impressions here. For anybody that's looking at this bike, as opposed to thinking, oh, 500, I've got a full license, I've been riding 1,000. So far, I think it's heaps of fun, eh? Now, is it the sexiest looking bike, the most exotic? No. But I'll tell you what, from this point, from my perspective here, looking down at the tank, with this red, and the white's the same, I'm not just saying, but it's a new colour for me. First bike I've ever owned that's been red. I tell a lie, I owned an XR 250 for about 6 months. I bought it for about $400. I was a Yamaha guy, I owned YZs, ITs, FJ 1200s, but I did have so it's the second one, but you know what I'm saying. Second road bike, only the first road bike I've ever owned that's red, and I like the look of a red. It's a pleasant, it's a sporty view for me, in my viewpoint, having a red bike. The whole cockpit, regardless of the colour, whether you get the white or the new colours that are coming out of the 26 model, I think it's a grey sort of colour, the 26 model. It looks good. It's a smaller version of a Transalp, but it feels compact, eh? If I was going to compare it to the Transalp, okay, I just had a text message, that's all. So, it's a miniature version of the Transalp in a good way. For a shorter ride, if you're tall, you're probably not going to fit on this bike. You're going to say it feels like a toy. So what I was going to say is, this bike feels like a sports bike, sports car feel, compared to if you're riding a 6-cylinder family sedan, which is a Transalp. If just from this point of view, from a size point of view, to riding a little 4-cylinder sports car, just not an exotic sports car, but let's say an MX-5, something like that. And that's pretty exotic, but you know what I'm saying. That's what it feels like. It feels like I'm in 4th gear. I've got to actually vary. I forgot I'm running the bike in, eh? And I'm forgetting I'm coming from a trans. And I'm probably, but anyway, I don't want to redline it, but you've got to vary the speed. So I'm just going to give it a bit of wind on. Yeah, so yeah, look, it's a little bit tight to run in, but doing that I can feel, yeah, because you got to be honest, I'm not going to say, oh, I can't feel the difference, or it is a huge power difference, a huge power drop between this and the Transalp, because this is only going to redline at 8,000 RPM, so what I can gather already and what I've read, it feels lively, from 0-1,000 revs up to about 5,000-6,000, and it drops off. So the torque, the thing with this bike is to ride it in the torque curve. So the torque peaks at about 5,000-6,000 RPM, I'm assuming, and maybe lower. The Transalp peaked at 6,500, so this might be a bit lower. And just short shift, because this is an 80-kilometre road here, so how quick can you go? And that's for one thing that swayed me to sell the Transalp, was how much am I using that 92 horsepower. So it had plenty of torque for Transalp, but you did feel the character of a twin cylinder, the 270 degree. with a 21-inch front wheel, but sometimes it felt loaded up, that front wheel. When you were riding conservatively, and I used to drop it down to 4th gear, the Transalp, and it was a great gear. But Transalp only needed 4 gears, and that's being honest. You could have 4 gears on a Transalp, and for most situations, except maybe really hitting it on a motorway or an open flowing back road, you'd be happy with 4 gears, eh? I just got to make sure I don't go the wrong way here. Oh, that was a bearded dragon, eh? I should have stopped there. Oh.